This video is going to go over percent yield and how it's an application and extension of what we've been doing in stoichiometry and as a method for determining how much of the product that you're supposed to make you're actually making. Okay, so the equation for percent yield is to take the actual yield and then divide it by the theoretical yield, and since it is a percent, multiply it by 100. Okay, I like to call this the optimistic version of percent error. If percent error measures how wrong you are, okay, percent yield measures how right you are, which is kind of great. You're basically doing a percent yield anytime you end up figuring out your grade for an assignment. It's what you earned out of what you could theoretically earn, and then you multiply it by 100. Okay, so the actual yield is the amount of product that you actually make in the lab. So this is what you would get from your data tables and from your scales or from your volumetric determinations like your graduated cylinder or anything like that. Okay, the theoretical yield is going to be the amount that would be made in theory if all went perfectly in the lab. This is determined through a calculation. And that calculation, no surprise, is going to be using stoichiometry. Okay, because we know the law of conservation of mass and matter is going to mean that whatever we start with should tell us how much of our product that we're going to make. Okay, so we know those relationships, mass, mass, volume, volume, particle, particle, or mixed. Okay, so a percent yield problem would look something like this. How much chalk did Tyler actually produce in the lab? If he has a 70.53% yield and he calculated that he should have made 22.5 grams of chalk in theory. Okay, so this is my percent yield, and it has a nice little twist on it. This is how much he theoretically should make. And then what we're looking for is how much did he actually make? So my unknown is the actual yield. Okay, so percent yield problems are going to be set up where you take the actual yield over the theoretical yield and you multiply by 100. So in this one, we know it's 70.53%. We don't know how much it is, and we know that he should have made 22.5 grams, and we multiply by 100. So how do we figure this out? Okay, using algebra, we are going to figure out what our numerator is going to be. So in essence, we need to get rid of this percentage by dividing both sides by 100, which is turning this into a decimal. So 0.7053 equals x over 22.5 grams. And then we need to get rid of the denominator by multiplying this side by 22.5 grams. And since it's an equality, multiplying this by 22.5 grams. So you're really doing just 22.5 grams times 0.753, which is 70%. You're really just taking 70% of the 22.5. And when you do this and type it into your calculator, you get 15.87 grams that he actually made. Okay? So if we review this, all right, you see that you have your 70.53% equals the x over 22.5 grams times 100, and then we get a 15.87 grams actual yield. Do you want to be able to check your answer? Well, check your answers the exact same way that you would figure out your score if you got it back in on a quiz. So check your answer by doing this. Figure out what percent you got. 15.87 grams over 22.5 grams times 100. So what percent do you get? You get 70.53. Do your percents match up? Yes, absolutely. So percent yield is the optimistic version of percent error. Your percent error would be the difference between these two divided by the bottom number. Okay, and that is percent yield.